Who's the man in the suit? Who is the cat with the beak? Do you really want to feel him? Harvey attorney, habeas corpus, Marvy attorney, Harvey Birdman, attorney at law.
Hello, cartoon fans. Welcome to Generation Toon, presented by the Space Monkey X Audio Workshop. This is your host, Rob Lamley. Here on Generation Toon, I, a Gen Xer, will be joined by my wife, Andrea, a millennial, and our Gen Z daughter, Harper, to watch some of our favorite cartoons spanning the last 40 years. In case you're not familiar with the show, each installment is part of a 3-episode cycle where one of the co-hosts presents a cartoon from their generation. We sit down and watch some of the featured cartoon, and then we'll talk about what makes it great, not so great, and whether or not we'd watch more of it in the future. If you like what you hear, please subscribe today and don't forget to leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. And with that, let's head over to the latest episode of Generation Toon. Okay, welcome back, I guess. It's been a while.
It has been a while.
The last one we recorded was G.I. Joe, and it was right as spring break was happening, and then we just kind of got into
the school year ramped up.
Yeah, we kind of got into the end of
the
year, so things just got really busy. So we are back now, though, down to the summer vacation, and tonight we are going to be discussing Harvey Birdman, attorney at law.
I'm so excited.
Now, this one was Andrea's choice. This is obviously not one she grew up with because it's in the early 2000s. Well,
when was the first episode?
Well, I'll be happy to tell you here in a minute when I do the history.
Okay, fine.
Unfortunately, with this one, we have to start way back in the 1960s because obviously Birdman Attorney at Law was not the original concept for Birdman. So Birdman from Hanna-Barbera ran from September 9th, 1967 until September 6th, 1969 for a total of only 20 episodes as part of a show called Birdman and the Galaxy Trio. Like a lot of cartoons back then, it was an anthology cartoon with Birdman running in the first and last 10-minute segments and Galaxy Trio making up the middle 10 minutes. Now, just to satisfy your curiosity, Galaxy Trio was about 3 extraterrestrial superheroes, Vapor Man, Meteor Man, and Gravity Girl, who could use their special powers to fight intergalactic crime. So then, the other 2 segments were Birdman. Birdman was Raymond Randall, who was given the power of the sun by the Egyptian god Ra. This gave him the ability to shoot solar rays out of his fists and create a semi-solid energy shield.
Well, we saw him do that in one of the episodes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Throughout the show, he is given missions by Falcon 7, his eye patch-wearing contact within Internation Security, the organization he works for, which becomes 7.
Yeah, Falcon 7.
He had 2 sidekicks, Avenger, his pet eagle, and Bird Boy. Bird Boy is a kid he rescued from a shipwreck who was near death, but Birdman revived him by passing on some of his raw solar powers to the boy. This gave him similar powers to Birdman, but it didn't give him biological wings, so he had mechanical wings instead.
So instead of Bird Boy, they called him Peanut?
The show was a pretty typical superhero show of the time, with a villain of the week usually trying to rob a bank or hold a monument hostage. Nothing terribly violent or really all that exciting.
Wait a minute, is that a real example? Hold a monument hostage?
Well, yeah, it was always like, I'll take over the Eiffel Tower, unless you pay me $1 million. It's kind of the whole joke of Austin Powers.
I definitely pictured somebody holding a knife to, the Lincoln Memorial.
Well,
yes.
it's entirely possible.
Like an actual hostage
I swear, if you
situation.
don't pay me, I will make sure that your statue in a park has no head.
Switchblade the size of a city bus.
Yeah.
All right, maybe that was a bad choice of words. Birdman was created by Alex Toth, a name we've heard before, as he also drew up the designs for the main characters on Thundar the Barbarian. He was also the creator of Space Ghost, Dino Boy in the Lost Valley, and one of my personal favorites, and one we'll be getting to on this show at some point, the Herculoids. Birdman cartoons were rerun a lot when I was a kid, so I was pretty familiar with him when Harvey Birdman came along. Harvey Birdman Attorney at Law was actually a spin-off from Space Ghost Coast to Coast. When that show ended its first run, it spun off 3 shows, The Brack Show, C-Lab 2021, and Harvey Birdman. Harvey Birdman debuted on Cartoon Network's Adult Swim from the premiere of Adult Swim on September 2nd, 2001, and ran until July 22nd, 2007, for a total of 39 episodes. It's a reimagining of Birdman, where instead of being a superhero, he is a lawyer who takes on cases involving other cartoon characters from Hanna-Barbera's stable of past shows. The show was filled with pop culture references that required the viewer to have some familiarity with the old shows to fully understand, but since Gen X and elder millennials who had grown up on those reruns were the target audience, the references didn't usually go over their heads. The show was created by Michael O'Lean and Eric Richter. O'Lean was the creative director at Cartoon Network starting in 1996 until the mid-2000s and is now the current president of the network. Richter is a screenwriter best known for Harvey, but also wrote on Space Ghost Coast to Coast. The show features a lot of characters from Birdman, namely Avenger, Bird Boy, also known as Peanut, his boss Phil Ken Seven, who was Falcon 7 on the original show, and a bunch of Birdman's villains who almost always play the opposing lawyer on the case of the week.
Okay, so that's why it became Philkin 7 instead of Falcon.
Falcon, exactly. Phil Ken 7. Yep.
Nice.
For some reason, the judge on the show was portrayed, well, in the early episodes, the judge is portrayed by Mighty Mightor, another Hanna-Barbera show that was running around the same time as Birdman. The two characters had nothing to do with each other, but Mightor did carry a big magical club, which stands in for the judge's gavel on Harvey Birdman.
What? Do you mean the powder wig was not a part of his original attire?
It actually looked very similar.
Oh, this show just keeps giving.
Yeah. Harvey is played by Gary Cole, best known for playing Bill Lumberg in Office Space, and a personal friend of Andrea's family.
Yes, this is true.
Let's fill in the audience on what that is all about.
He and my uncle had they went to school together. They were very good friends, and so they had a local cable access show together in Rolling Meadows, Illinois. And so, yeah, he was just around like all the time. Like my dad is one of 8 kids, and so there's a lot of people to hang out with. And so, yeah, he was just always kind of around.
He was kind of like another member of the family, wasn't he?
He was. That's my understanding. When you have, especially, when you have so many people, it's just like your house becomes the hangout house, right. And so you're just like.
And what's one more kid hanging around?
Exactly.
and if you want to know how true that goes, if I can go on a quick side tangent, it all comes back around. Okay, so. That side of my family is very strong, sick sense of humor.
Theatrical as well.
Very theatrical. Yeah. So when my parents were dating early, it was my mom's birthday, and they were all signing a card for her. And my uncle, Scott, who is the one who's so close with Gary, just for the hell of it was like, there's so many of us, so he signed the card with an extra name. He signed Harold.
Right.
So Harold,
because no one would notice.
Because she's like, there's so many of us, no one will notice. And so Harold became like kind of like myth within my family. So then later when they were doing like a video, supposed to be like a SNL take, but it kind of like touched base on all the members of the family. And so when they were doing that, they had Gary in a paper lawn and leaf bag, as Harold, who had been, traded away as a child. And so he's in this bag, and they've got someone else doing, voiceover, but it's him. He's in the bag. And then the other thing that he did is, to introduce it like a SNL style cold open. He fell down the stairs at my family's house and then introduces it. So, yeah,
So he was the Chevy Chase, sort of.
A little bit, but yeah,
this show just keeps on giving and giving, especially with how how one of the main people who voiced the main character is basically part of your family.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just.
I think that's awesome.
I think it's awesome that you.
Yeah, it was just actually funny story. Obviously the family's bigger now, but at one point I was literally the only person in my family who hasn't met him.
Wait, really?
I still have not.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. So
listen, if that ever happens, I better be there.
Even my brother. Sadly, if it happens now, it's going to be at a funeral.
Well, that's fine.
But even I think my brother has met him because, as a small child, because I remember the last time that. I'm sure he's been around recently. Due to lots of deaths in the family. in the past 5 years. But it was my grandmother's funeral. I went home, or went to and they all went out to dinner, and I think my brother was young enough that he couldn't stay back.
Gotcha.
And of course he was there.
Figures, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was funny to me because at one point it's oh yeah, just me.
So
right.
It's basically
just me. Everyone else.
So basically, the universe was just making sure you don't meet him.
I think this is a Mr. Snuffleupagus situation. Where he's not actually a friend of the family. They just tell you
yes.
And you'll never actually meet him.
Yes. Yes. It is a massive group. Actually, I would be
it's
both.
a massive group gaslighting.
Exactly. And honestly, if that were to be the case,
that would be impressive.
Real mad, but kind of impressed.
You guys work together to gaslight me about this?
About Gary Cole? About Bill Lumberg? Okay. But anyway,
team effort.
I think it's really cool because I love the idea of just kind of this B or C-list celebrity being someone that's in your life and you actually could know him. That just seems like...
Well, and that's the thing, though, is B and C-list might be true. That's not true anymore of him.
Well, no.
I mean,
absolutely.
That's the funny thing is so therefore in my house, there's always been this fondness...
Right.
For anything that he does.
Well, yeah, I mean, he wasn't Nightcaller? Wasn't that his big show where he was the star of the
Midnight
show?
Caller. Midnight Caller, where he was the DJ, and that's back when my uncle was still acting some, so he every once in a while would be like, "Oh, there's that one." Yeah.
And then American Gothic was a big thing for him too, wasn't it?
Well, in that it was a network show in prime time. It didn't last very long.
No, but he was the star, wasn't he? Or at least he was.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But then, honestly, then it became Office Space, The Brady Bunch.
Yeah, that's
true. Talladega Nights.
Yep.
And all this voice stuff.
Yeah.
That's the other thing is it doesn't matter what I'm watching. I'll be oh, that's Gary.
It's just wild that I was a big fan of his before I even met you. Mm-hmm. I mean, I just thought he was great. So
we could keep going down rabbit holes with my family because there's also the my great grandmother babysat for Orson Welles.
What?
So this is another thing that came out at a funeral. We had started talking about the Wells lamp, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" And apparently, as a thank you, there was a Tiffany style lamp that the Orson Welles family gave to someone in my family. This is what. Okay, let's keep going. You want to keep doing this?
Sure. Why not?
Is this my uncle? Happens when you have a big family?
Yeah, it
is.
And be in Chicago.
Yes, northwest suburbs of Chicago. My other uncle Glenn, ended up he moved out into the Northeast. He ended up renting a house on some land, and then was and the guy he was renting it from was William H. Macy's father.
Nice.
So William, I don't remember if it's Glenn taught William H. Macy or William H. Macy taught Glenn how to ride a horse.
You know the show Shameless?
Yeah, I know.
The dad as well.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, there's just all kinds of
crazy.
I didn't find out a lot of that until again. Unfortunately, I'm finding out a lot of this history because they're dying off.
Anybody in my family.
Well, let's see. We were in two very different parts of Illinois.
Yes, that's fair. Okay, now that we've gotten past the Gary Cole saga in the Schumacher family,
that means I'm only we were talking about this earlier.
Yeah, we were. Yeah,
I am if you want to go by 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon rules, I'm only 4 degrees from some of my favorite people in the world.
Yeah, I mean, so many celebrities. Yeah,
just because of this show alone.
Speaking of celebrities. Nice little segue there. Did you like that? Yeah. Okay. There were a lot of celebrity voices on Harvey Birdman, including Stephen Colbert, who had a recurring role as Harvey's boss, Phil Ken 7, again, Falcon 7.
And?
As well as one of his nemesis lawyers, Reducto. One of my favorites.
He's amazing. He reminds me of the Dean from Community.
Yes.
But if he, went slightly...
Yeah.
But he just went slightly unhinged and, paranoid.
You mean more unhinged.
I was going to say.
Yeah, because... The Dean from Community is so, all over the place and
but in his own head.
But in his own head.
Yeah. And that's a good analogy.
That's a really good one.
That's all I could see whenever I saw this, tiny, bald alien with glasses who's just, pointing a gun at everyone.
And here's where I will remind you, that man, Oscar winner.
Yeah.
Oscar winner.
Okay. We also have John Michael Higgins, who has been in Christopher Guest's mockumentaries.
Yes.
Lorraine Newman, one of the original Not Ready for Primetime players on SNL. David Koechner from Anchorman. Stand-up comedian Lewis Black. Michael McKean from Laverne and Shirley, Spinal Tap, and Better Call Saul.
So also the Christopher Guests.
Yes, that's true too. Luke Skywalker and the Joker himself, Mark Hamill, as well as many well-known...
That puts you only 5 degrees from Mark Hamill.
That's amazing.
Oh my god!
Now I have a purpose in life.
Ouch! I am right here.
Yeah, honey.
There are also many well-known voice actors, like Joe Alasky, the successor of Mel Blanc. He took on most of the roles of the Looney Tunes character after Blanc passed away. Chris Edgerly, who specialized on the old Hanna-Barbera voices, like Augie Doggy, Captain Caveman, and the Funky Phantom. Rob Paulson and Maurice LaMarche, Pinky and the Brain, respectively. D. Bradley Baker, who has been on SpongeBob SquarePants. He plays all of the clones on the Clone Wars. He's been on The Last Airbender, and he plays Perry the Platypus.
Yes. Well, pretty much, if they need a weird animal noise...
Well, that's true, yes.
It's him.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Let's see, we also have Billy West, who has a bunch of roles on Futurama. He's also the Red M&M, and he's been on a ton of other shows. Tom Kenny, the voice of SpongeBob. Phil Lamar, who was on Mad TV, but also plays on Futurama, Foster's Home, and Baxter Stockman on TMNT Cartoon. Mm-hmm. Tress MacNeille, famous for being Dot on Animaniacs and Babs the Bunny on Tiny Toons and a ton of more shows.
Oh gosh, so many things.
And no list of voice actors would be complete without Frank Welker.
Well, yeah.
The show went off the air after 4 seasons, but there was a special called Harvey Birdman, Attorney General, that aired on October 15th, 2018, where we jump ahead to the future and find Harvey is now the Assistant U.S. Attorney General who tries to get his former boss, President Phil Ken-Sebin, impeached.
Dang.
There was a Harvey Birdman video game released for the PS2, Wii, and PlayStation Portable in 2008, where you played as Harvey and tried 5 interactive cases. The game was essentially a Harvey Birdman version of the long-running Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney games.
Can we please do a spin-off where we do video games?
Like, I want to find that for the Wii.
That.
Oh, it'd be no problem. You hop on eBay. It's like $5.
I want that.
I looked it up. The show was released in 3 volumes of DVDs and can currently be found streaming on HBO Max. There is also a spin-off of Harvey Birdman, Bird Girl, which debuted on April 5th, 2021, and by the time you listen to this, will have started its 2nd season on June 19th, 2022. That show is also created by Oline and Richter and stars one of my celebrity crushes, Paget Brewster, as Bird Girl, who also voiced the character in seasons 3 and 4 of Harvey Birdman. The show follows Judy Ken-Sebin, the daughter of Harvey's boss Phil Ken-Sebin, who fights crime as Bird Girl. When her father is killed in an accident, she has to take over 7 and 7 worldwide, but tries to maintain her crime-fighting career on the side. For today's discussion, because the episodes are only about 10 minutes long, we watched the entire 1st season of Harvey Birdman for a total of 9 episodes.
Mm-hmm. I like that they're like, Phil Ken-Sebin, who was killed in an accident, a.k.a. hosting one of the largest shows in late night.
We couldn't get Stephen Colbert back.
Yeah, exactly. We could get him to yell like he's dying. And then
So, that was the history of Harvey Birdman. Again, it goes all the way back to the 1960s, but was reimagined for the 21st century.
Yeah.
So, obviously we know you loved it.
Yes.
I had watched the 1st season, and I think that was about it. At that time, I was old enough to be working a full-time job, and I had other things going on, so I didn't really get to watch many. I watched Adult Swim, but I didn't get to watch it, like, religiously.
Right.
So
I didn't either at that time, but I also know that, like, that was also leading up to my brother's transplant, so he was in real bad shape, so a lot of times, I know my mom and brother liked Birdman, too, because it was something they could watch together, and it was funny for both of them. And I think that was also my, like, introduction into it, was like, oh, well, this is something my brother likes, I should watch it too, and then totally adored it, obviously.
Yeah.
About the part where, like, they both found it funny, I think that's one of the things I really like about it, is the fact that it can play into so many people's different humor, where it could be really smart and witty humor, but also be very chaotic and out and all over the place humor.
Yeah, very physical and goofy, too.
Yeah. Harper, obviously you had never watched it. Had you even heard of it before we sat down and watched it?
I've heard of it, and the only time I've heard of it is whenever I'm, like, watching people review, like, or talk about Adult Swim shows,
Gotcha.
and they would mention, oh, this humor is similar to Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law, or they will mention, like, or they will mention like other superhero cartoons, and Harvey Birdman would like pop up.
Gotcha.
And so I didn't know him any more than just the name, but I've always thought like Harvey Birdman, attorney at law.
I mean, just
that little add-on was just like
funny.
weird. I'm like, why is he being associated with superheroes, but also humor
a lawyer.
and lawyers?
Right. So did you like it?
I did.
Okay.
I really liked it. It kind of, in the first episode, it kind of caught me off guard.
Yeah, I remember you were just like, what is going on?
Well, because on top of that, like, we had to, because the first one covers a custody battle for Johnny Quest.
Which I've heard of him.
Between Ray Spannon and Dr. Quest.
Yes, for Johnny and the other kid, which no one ever... Raji? I don't remember. But that's kind of the joke.
That
was literally one of the jokes. Is that no one could remember the kid's name.
And but like part of the other funny part was that, what is it? Dr. Quest couldn't remember his own kid's name.
They couldn't even remember what they looked like.
Raja. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
It's fine.
Yeah.
But yes, so
I mean, we had to go through and explain to Harper on almost every episode, like, what these characters were and why this is funny.
Yeah, sometimes, because like then I mean, fortunately, Shaggy Gets Busted was pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, because you'd watch Scooby-Doo.
I've definitely watched Scooby-Doo,
and
it's one of the
it's one of the cannabis is.
Yeah. One of the cartoons that I'm hoping we talk about is Mysteries Incorporated.
It's on the list.
Okay,
absolutely.
Because it is because in my opinion, from what I've watched of Scooby-Doo, it is the best rendition of Scooby-Doo by far.
100%.
Like I'm very aware of Scooby-Doo, so that one was easy for me.
Okay.
With Johnny Quest, that was like that was one that I have heard of and I think I've seen clips of online.
Right.
I just never knew.
Sat down and watched
I just never knew the entire story.
And that's, that's fair, because even when I was a kid, it wasn't really running anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've watched maybe more than 2 or 3 episodes of the show.
Like, I knew just enough, when I first watched Birdman, I knew just enough context to know what's going on.
Yeah.
But...
Well, plus our experience with Venture Brothers kind of plays into that as well.
That's true. But we did have to explain to you what the Sopranos were when we got to the Gabadon. Not that what the Flintstones were, but then we're like... Oh right, this is like a shot for shot of the beginning of the Sopranos.
I also because it's the internet. I also understood most of the Godfather references.
Yeah.
Just because it's the internet.
Yeah.
And those are all over the place.
Right.
My favorite thing about the first episode that is just personally funny to me is the fact that the two main guys were acting like a gay married couple.
Yes.
Well, that's the point.
Yeah. Yes. It's very much a Bert and Ernie situation.
Well, the other thing that also was again, it kind of shows when the show came out, and then also when the show was representing is they kind of had to dance around saying they were a couple.
Yeah, especially on Cartoon Network. I mean, I realize it's the Adult Swim block, but they still couldn't really.
But fortunately, because of when the characters are from, it's not that jarring of them ignoring it.
Right, exactly.
Because it plays into the whole, it's the 60s. No, they're just friends.
Yeah, they're roommates.
Colleagues.
But they're still making jokes about it while
exactly.
keeping it hidden.
Exactly.
Which the way that they implied it was honestly really good because a lot of shows did this back then. Sometimes they still have to do it where they will heavily imply it, but the showrunners cannot cancel it or cannot say anything about it because they just have to go, oh, but they're just friends.
Gravity Falls.
Yeah.
With the 2 cops.
Oh, yeah.
I
love those two.
I know, me
so
too. But yes, even today, they have to sometimes dance around that.
Mm-hmm.
But this was, again, 20 years ago.
I'm going to have so much stuff to say when we get to Owl House. My God.
I know. So, yeah, I mean, even 20 years ago, they still had to dance around it because it wasn't really...
And honestly, the way they danced around it was really funny to me.
Well, it was clever. And I mean, obviously, the writers and everyone involved here are very funny people.
Very clever as well.
Because I have a feeling, I obviously don't know this, but I have a feeling that these scripts were very loose. I mean, you can't tell me Stephen Colbert didn't occasionally
go off the rails.
Yeah,
Well, I mean that's the thing. A lot of those the cast is a lot of improv people.
So I mean,
I'm sure I would love to just I would die for behind the scenes taping of lines.
It might be on the DVDs. We have the first volume? First 2 volumes?
First season?
I don't remember. I'll have to, but either way.
Of the era, I get my Colbert comedies mixed up because I can't remember how much I own of Strangers with Candy versus how much I own of...
I know you have all of Strangers with Candy because it came in one complete set.
It's a Trapper Keeper.
Yes. Whereas Birdman, I know, came in separate volumes. 3 volumes.
Yeah, 3 of them. Yeah.
Which I want to say we have at least volume 1.
Okay.
So, anyway. So, yeah, then we had the Scooby-Doo episode, which killed me. I mean, I loved it.
So
well, and one of the things that's really great about this show, and that was kind of jarring, but it's kind of, I don't know, indicative of Adult Swim, kind of, is like in that the Shaggy Gets Busted episode, all of a sudden it goes to a real actors in a dash cam for the police truck. And so like that walks up like he's pulling him over,
like
and
cops.
it's an actual cops. And so but then it goes right back to animated.
Right. Yeah.
I love it. But I feel like that was common for Adult Swim at the time, that they would kind of make those jumps.
Space Ghost was basically that. It was animation.
It was a person in a green screen studio.
Yeah. So it's
That's
not
true.
surprising that they would do that. But then they also did it later with Birdman. Remember, they go live action. Yeah.
What? Wait a minute. What'd you say?
Basically, there was a scene where they were making fun of what was it, like sponsorships and like marketing and stuff.
And so he's
then
on
suddenly
the beach.
and suddenly they just have like a picture of like some random like soda company, and then they cut to a shot with a real actor in a Birdman costume and then someone in a giant soda like costume, and they're just making this entire scene like romanticized.
Yeah, they're running on the
to
beach
make fun of sponsorships.
Is that one of the ones we watched?
Yeah.
Yes.
Now I'm worried I dozed off or both of you did, because I don't remember that.
I specifically remember it because it was so random and out of place from the rest
of it.
Because like it happened, because like they were in the bar, which they usually do, but then that entire scene just happened where they were joking about sponsorships, and then it continued with a case. I'm like, what in the world?
I want to say it was Tab.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That was an old. That was a real thing. Tab Cola.
It looked
was an
fake.
actual. No, I know.
No, Tab was a real soda.
Yeah, it died out long before you were born.
It looked so fake.
Yeah. So yes. So I mean, it was just the idea that they would do that was very progressive at the time. I mean, that was pretty wild, you know.
Right.
Nobody really been doing that.
Especially, just thinking about it from like, it's a 10-minute show.
Yeah, and they took the time.
And you took the time.
Probably 2 minutes.
To take something that looked like the Mystery Machine and rent that car and make the...
Yeah.
I love
You also took the time to
make a Tab costume.
A Tab costume.
A Birdman
costume. Go to the... Imagine being on the beach and you just see this.
Because, they probably had to do an hour's worth of takes to get what they wanted.
Imagine you're just trying to have a fun time at the beach, and you see a man with wings, like having a romanticized scene with a soda can.
For the record, all future trips to the beach that I ever make will now have that bar to live up to, so that's never happening.
So, Andrea, I know your favorite episode is Dabadon. Yo Dabadon, or whatever it's called.
Honestly,
it's called the Dabadon.
The Dabadon.
Right.
And that is the Flintstones, Sopranos, mob knockoff, joke. And it does have a lot of great references.
It does.
When we first got together, the line you were constantly quoting was, "You're dead to me, can opener."
I will still say it.
I know.
I just don't say it out loud as much because it gets looks.
Yeah, it is really funny. It's definitely one of the highlights. So many, I loved.
I want to make a Dabadoo shirt, out of the Bada Bing thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was great.
Yes.
The strip club instead of the Bada Bing.
It's the Dabadoo.
That's from Sopranos.
The Bada Bing is the strip club they hung out at. There's the multiple references to The Godfather.
Yes.
There was
That's what I was going to talk about.
Not 2, but 3 decapitated heads in beds.
Starting with I can't remember the name of the horse. Quick Draw McGraw.
That's the horse. Okay.
Yeah. And then you had Jabberjaw.
No, Jabberjaw was the last one because it talks back.
Right, yeah.
I don't remember who the second one was.
I don't remember either, but it was hilarious.
Yes, because 3 times in the same 10 minutes, and for some reason it was funny every time.
It's funny because Harvey doesn't understand that Fred is a mob boss. He has to keep being, like, reminded.
Right. Right.
Whoa.
Well, but then again, I mean, sorry guys, spoilers for this 20-year-old episode, but at the end we find he was right.
Right.
He's not the boss.
Yeah, he just keeps getting hit
Barney's
on the head.
yeah, that too, but Barney's the boss.
Real boss. That's right, yeah. But yeah, that one had a ton of great references to mob movies.
I also love how he had a caveman looking sweatshirt.
Yes.
That he was wearing the entire time instead of his regular attire.
Yeah,
that was hilarious.
Well, the regular was sticking out from the bottom.
It was
That's the other thing. The other thing I love about that episode is that they rewrite the Sopranos theme, and the very the very end of it is "You got no pants or shoes."
Yeah. Instead of "You got yourself a
gun." It's a perfect 11 minutes.
It is great. It is hilarious. I will say though that I think the last episode was one of my favorites.
The two-parter?
No, the last episode. Not the two-parter where he dies or whatever it was.
He goes to jail.
Yeah.
And he almost dies, but then everyone's just like, it's a big
joke.
birthday party! And he's like, I've been in jail for 5 years.
No, I can't remember what the last one was, but it had a very Venture Brothers vibe to it. Like, the whole time I was watching it, I kept thinking, this feels like a Venture Brothers episode.
I swear the last two episodes are the two-parter. So are you thinking of the one with the show you weenie?
No, but that is a great one as well. We should definitely talk about that one.
It's also... Okay, we should also say that much like a lot of these cartoons, there are some maybe questionable things that
have not aged
great. Absolutely.
Like...
Things that have aged like milk, so...
So, yeah, let's talk about the, what was the show you
weenie.
Yeah.
The Japanese man, show you weenie.
Keeps on doing this.
Yeah, that every time someone says it, Harvey covers his crotch. Even if he's the one saying it. Show you weenie.
Yeah, that killed me.
Also that kid that kept on, biting his wing and trying to crawling.
Well, the one that was just
starving.
And it is also becomes way too attached to Harvey because at one point he's asking questions and the kid's doing flips up his side like a toddler,
like Ash did.
Oh, absolutely,
like our son did.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it just all of a sudden he's just naturally just taking care of his kid, while everything else is going on.
Yeah. Yeah, that one was great. I wish they'd had more with Jabberjaw though. And their band, the Neptunes. I wish they had 2 lines and then they were gone. But that was a really great one too. No, the last one is X the Exterminator, where the X the Eliminator keeps trying to kill Harvey, but he's too nice.
Right, that's right, because he had a very 21, 24 vibe from Venture.
Yes. But it even felt like Monarch, because he's a really inept bad guy.
Yes.
And so then Harvey Birdman is just completely ignoring him, just like Venture always did. In the early episodes.
I think my favorite part of that entire thing is when the X the Eliminator or Exterminator is he's trying to kill Harvey with this large death ray. And while Harvey is trying to continue with his case that he has, he decides to grab a child and use it as a meat shield.
Yeah, that was great.
That's right, even going so far as chaining the kid to him.
Yeah. Wrapping it around him.
He was ducking and just stay right there.
Yeah.
The other thing that I loved about that I feel was underrated is the fact that every time he tries, he's got to wheel this massive panel
console
in, and then it has to warm up.
Well, yes.
Every time.
And then he has to find a plug.
Yes.
Oh, is that 3-prong?
Yeah.
He has to adjust things by going to a shop and asking for...
Yeah, he keeps blowing tubes because it's an old technology from 30 years ago when he originally tried to kill Harvey Birdman.
Right.
And then, of course, there was a scene where there's just a giant red X in front of the witness stand, and Harvey's like going up to it. He looks over and it's just X just sitting next to it reading a magazine, like looking up and then looking back down.
But then he has to avoid the X because that's X marks the spot.
Yeah.
Right.
And so he's like leaning over it to hand off files.
And he keeps on looking back and like it's just...
Yeah, that was my favorite one because it felt like a Venture's Brother episode. I mean, it just killed me. That was my favorite one.
I always loved the rapport of like the friendly villain and hero, like they hate each other, but at the same time they get along on the battlefield and everything.
Wait until you rewatch Venture
Brothers.
Because like that's why whenever I watched like the Lego Batman movie and it was the Joker and Batman like having this rapport, like that was so funny to me and is so great. So whenever this episode showed up and they were like
they had coffee together.
They were planning to have coffee together, and Harvey like he came back. He's like, "Sorry, I forgot my briefcase." He's like, "Oh, silly you!"
Yeah,
like, It was hilarious.
Yes. Yeah. I think we need to talk about Peanut.
Title of your sex tape.
Peanut killed me. Just because
when he's got the Angela necklace when he's the mobster. Who do you want? Is it him? Is it him? You want me to kill him?
I also love how Peanut, like, he will sometimes just speak in a normal voice, like his normal voice, and then other times he will just speak in a low whisper.
Or he's like scheming. Or the best part is when he walks in, it's just fluent in Japanese. For the show you weenie one, where he's just like.
There's also times where like he'll just act like a regular teenage boy, because there's one time in the Exterminator one, X is like across the street and could see them through the window, and he just goes, "Screw it, I'm gonna moon him."
Yeah,
it's hilarious.
Right, and so that's just in the background of the scene. It's just his
wiggling
butt,
his butt in the window. Yeah. I also loved the rivalry he had with Avenger, the actual eagle that does all the typing and everything.
The best part is the eagle sometimes typing, and then there was one whole episode where every time Avenger's in the scene, he's just tracing his feet with a red crayon.
I don't know why. That was the I can't remember what it's called.
Show You Weenie
episode.
There's
he's just tracing his foot for some reason.
One of my favorite ones was like, it was Harvey like walks into his office and is like, I think he's getting prepared to go talk to his boss, and Peanut is like has this giant like ball of spikes, and he's trying to like attach them.
Yeah,
he puts
like a squirrel in there.
Right, he's putting all the spikes on like this massive wrecking ball, and then through the rest of the episode, it would just swing through the background.
Yeah, and I don't know what the squirrel was all about. Why is there a squirrel in the spiked ball?
Here's the best part: is like I don't remember later episodes, but
it probably comes back. Yeah, well, it's like the bear. The bear just randomly shows up.
There's just a bear that randomly shows up in some scene. Like, in the spike ball scene, when he's putting that together, the bear helps lift him up to help him. And then just disappears.
God. Yeah, and then
Then at the end, where, like, all the characters are doing that, like, that classic, like, laughing together, the bear just shows up.
And he's just clapping.
Everybody's
just waiting for him.
Yeah, because that's it. Everybody else stopped,
and
then he's the last
clapping.
one clapping, and he's like... Oh wait! He puts his hands down very.
But he claps for. He claps for a very long time.
He shows up multiple times, and also speaking of the long clap scene, there are so many scenes in this show where it is a mix of very quick shots where it like the camera like switches very quickly, and there's also very long shots where it's the same position, but the character's doing something, and like it just very slowly stops.
Well, that or it does the whole. Which Family Guy does this really well sometimes, but it's like it goes on too long and stops being funny, but then keeps going and comes back around to being funny again because of how long it has taken.
Peanut is gotta be my favorite. Like, he's one of my favorite characters because of the fact that that he will like switch from Harvey's team on a dime.
Oh yeah, like he's ready to stab him in the back.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
In the episode where in the two-parter where Harvey goes to jail, basically like he drops all of like Harvey's gear, the gear that looks like Harvey's, and just puts on the new guys, like the guy who got Harvey's promotions gear on.
Blue Falcon.
Yeah, Blue Falcon. And then in the Dabadon episode, he's trying to help. He's trying to help.
He's just trying to get a spot in the mob.
Yeah,
like he is kissing up. Yeah. I mean, but it's also you see him in his normal uniform once. And then from then on, he's wearing like a velvet tracksuit and chains. And
he's also...
But always with the bird cowl.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the fake wings.
Yeah. I like to think that he just can't, like, he loves the fake wings and he loves that stuff, even though he's not on Harvey's side, he's just going to use it to mess with it.
It's like coincidental, almost. Yeah.
I mean, he's totally in it for himself, but that's what kills me.
And the fact that he's called Peanut instead of Bird Boy.
Yeah.
They could have chosen any generic name for this side character, but they chose Peanut.
Yeah, it is great. The comedy in this is just, I love it. It is perfectly for me. Like, I just cannot get over it. It's almost like it was written for me.
I also I love the two-parter simply because of the scenes. Like, I love the first part of the two-part. The second part was just mostly Harvey in jail.
The two-parter, by the way, is called Dead-O Mutt.
Oh yeah, Dead-O Mutt.
Yeah.
But like, I liked the first part simply because of the boss and the new Blue Hawk.
Falcon. Yeah.
Blue Falcon. Sorry. Just their rapport and like how they spoke. I just remember there was one time where the boss was like, "God, I love your accent." And he just whispers, "Bye, curious."
That's right. Yeah. That's right. That is where like Phil Kenseben kind of goes off the rails.
Yeah.
Where he's got a lot more like kind of non sequiturs, like just spouting shit.
Yeah, and again, that is definitely a Stephen Colbert added line. I guarantee it.
Somehow, as a part of the series, though, I think we got to go into TV Funhouse at some point.
Oh, absolutely.
So that...
I would love to do that.
Yeah.
The ambiguously gay duo.
That is me and most of my friends.
The Dead-O Mutt, the two-parter, was really funny for me because I loved Blue Falcon and Dino Mutt when I was a kid. And so to see them get, the Harvey Birdman treatment was really great. Especially the way Dino Mutt is killed in the copying machine.
No, the printer.
No, he's killed in the copier, but we also have to bring up the fact that he was a printer.
Right.
And he's just shitting pieces of paper.
It's just streaming out of his ass.
Squatting on a desk.
Doesn't even look like an actual printer. It's just him just sitting and squatting on a desk.
Yeah.
Just shitting paper.
Yeah, seriously, this show. Okay. We know it's great. We know it's amazing. One thing that I really appreciated, the art style is very 1960s. It's very simple lines.
Love it.
But what I loved is that we always saw a little bit of a side story of what happened to bring the case to Harvey, and they always went with the original show's aesthetic. Scooby-Doo or Johnny Quest or some. Yeah. What?
Well, Scooby-Doo wasn't exactly the original because they did that live action scene.
Well, no, but they did do some.
They did.
When they were talking about the case, they had scenes from the actual cartoon.
Yeah, when they're driving along and and
they would add audio to make it sound like they're all high.
But I loved that concept of using the original show's aesthetic rather than just Harvey's aesthetic.
Oh yeah,
I thought that was really clever and really cool.
I think one of the ones that stuck out to me was what was the one with the bear? The two bears. That one,
two bears.
Yeah, Yogi and
Yogi.
Boo-Boo.
Yes, where the eco-terrorist.
Yeah, the
Boo-Boo, the
Boo-Boo bomber.
Yeah,
the Boo-Boo bomber.
That one was so funny because my point is that basically when they first showed up, the scenery and the backgrounds and everything look like how it was in the original show, which I have seen clips and screenshots of, and then of course it puts in the people who are more in the Harvey Birdman almost style, where it looks he's got similar
a little bit cleaner
build.
and
cleaner. Wasn't didn't have that same lines and color work, throwing what was it
the grenade
into the cave. It was just funny.
Yeah, but I love that mix of style. And the way that they referenced the old show without... You had to have known the old show's aesthetics to some extent.
To some extent, but I do feel like it did a good job of... again, there are many things that I had no frame of reference for when I first watched this, but it gives you enough that you don't need to know everything about it.
I'm not saying all the humor and all the story. I'm talking about purely the aesthetic.
Well, okay,
You know,
I get you.
Now, you're right, though. Even the comedy, it helps to know more,
but it's not required. And
no.
Which just becomes that much more impressive when you, again, remember, this was 10 minutes.
Yeah.
This is 10 minutes, and you've given me enough to go on that I know this older property, I'm going to enjoy this current property, and it's going to literally stick with me for years.
Yeah, yeah.
It's also good because, like, although most of it you would have to have known the older stuff, it still gives you a basic information of the characters and who they are as people and their personalities, or at least key components in their personalities, for you to understand, like, how they could be in this situation.
Right.
Like, with Dabadon, although I haven't seen that much of the Flintstones, I still remember bits and pieces. They still gave you the key, like, components of Fred's personality to make the story, like, compelled more. And so that way people who don't know the Flintstones very well can still know, oh, he's this type of guy, which might lead him to wanting to do this.
Right.
Like,
but, and then just to add to that, another layer of that is when he's talking about what he does for a living, he's talking about construction and building materials, and he worked at a rock quarry. And you would know that if you watched the Flintstones when you were a kid, and so that just adds to the comedy. Like, oh, it makes... That is something that a mob boss would be into, is construction materials, because you can inflate the prices and, you know... And so, I mean, it just adds to the comedy if you know it, have a deeper understanding of the shows. So, I mean, that's great. That's brilliant. And that's how it should have been. So, I love that aspect of it.
With a lot of shows now who, like, try to bring back older series, a lot of people who grew up on those series complain that they are focused, either focused too much on introducing a newer audience to this series and, like, leaving all of the old components of the other series, or they're too focused on getting other people who grew up on this series back, and it's not leaving
alienating.
It's alienating the newer generation, the people who are learning about this.
Right.
So I like how...
Okay, someone has to point out the irony in what you're saying, considering we are sitting amongst so much Star Wars stuff, and what you are describing is basically the Star Wars trajectory.
Yes, it is.
And fandom. Like,
That's an exception.
I don't know if you were trying to, like, Kaiser Soze this stuff by just looking around at what you see and just calling it out, but I appreciate
what I mean is that, like, there are some, like, I'm sure this will happen when I'm older, is that there's going to be someone who wants to, like...
They're going to redo My Little Pony for every generation.
Oh, yeah. And, like, a lot of people are going to complain because it's leaving a bunch of, like, new components from the older show that made it great.
Right.
And so Harvey Birdman is able to combine both the newer generation, the people who don't know about these shows or don't know about Harvey Birdman, and gives them context for it, while the people who do know these cartoons and do know Harvey Birdman and do know all of this can also enjoy it.
And what's great about that is that it took the old shows and, just like Harvey, reimagined them, recontextualized them, so that it's, again, if you know the backstory or the lore of the original show, it's even funnier now to think about Fred Flintstone as a mob boss. I
also like the fact that it gives these cartoon characters, like, they put them kind of into our world. Like, Harvey Birdman is now an attorney at law.
Right.
Instead of a superhero.
Yeah.
X the Eliminator is, like, just a basement dweller trying to find his best way to get money.
Right.
Like, there's a bunch of cartoon characters who are either just kind of continuing with their cartoon bit, but they're able to, like, but they have to abide by certain laws and everything, and they're putting them all into our situation, to our world, and turning it into more comedic and funny. And
well, they're not afraid to turn the lens back on themselves and make fun of it. It's part of the reason Mystery Incorporated became so funny. Or like when you were younger, there was also Barbie's Dream House.
Yes.
Oh yes, I mean that's the thing, is like, that's to me the way these things tend to make it, is to be able to poke fun at what it was allows it to grow further.
And really, this show and other Adult Swim's shows were kind of the first to really do that with a lot of Gen X properties. Like, Quentin Tarantino kind of started the idea. Kevin Smith had some Star Wars conversations in his earlier films, but this was like the first real mainstream thing that everyone could watch, you know, whether you were, I mean, just a fan of cartoons, you'd watch it. That was really self-reflective like that I can remember. There's probably other examples.
There might be others, but I get what you're saying because, again, they did it with this. They do the whole C-Lab. They do, you know what I mean?
Even
like
Space Ghost,
Coast to
was
Coast,
very self-reflective.
So, it's... I don't know.
And so, I mean, to me, I think this is very influential because of that.
It is. It's interesting to me to revisit these kind of things for me because all of my cartoons I remember fondly, or even just shows from me growing up, it's like I can very clearly draw lines as to how my sense of humor was created.
Oh, same.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to talk about Gravity Falls so early in our podcast, is because like that was a show that greatly influenced who I am as a person and what I find funny and what I find inspirational and everything.
But think about that. You're saying that right now as a 14-year-old. So like there's going to be so many more things that are going to influence the way...
I can already think
But the other
some.
thing is that the Gravity Falls, compared to some of the things that that were around that I was watching, actually has a lot of like seriousness to it and weight to it. And that's I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of the stuff that I like is a little lighthearted and escapist and absurdist.
And I mean, we've already watched G.I. Joe and Real Ghostbusters and Thundar from my generation.
We've already talked
It
about
was all escapist.
It was all capitalism.
Well, there's that true. That's true too.
We already talked about how like your guys' cartoons that you guys grew up with are like a lot more, not all of them, but a lot of them are more episodic with a greater story that is more just like the basic plot.
That there really was no greater story. That's
True.
just it.
Well,
it was...
but the other thing to consider is, at least while we're talking about this, is that's kind of what you're seeing with what we're focusing on, because that's what resonated with us. Because I want to say around this same time or close to it is when you had like Batman the Animated Series, which was way more like...
Well, that was earlier, but yes.
But okay, the same
90s.
General time frame.
Yeah, same decades.
And it just wasn't... It wasn't anything that caught my interest at the time, but I know a lot of people... Like, I've considered going back and watching it now, because I know a lot of people talk about how amazing it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, these more episodic, more... Like, for your...
Flavor of the week. It's a single episode that has
Monster of the
very
Or
little
as
impact
compared
on the
to
next.
how my generation, a lot of people my age grew up with cartoons who had a big, greater story where it was a mix of drama, of action, and of a bunch of sad, like really sad and traumatic parts for the characters, but also funny and comedic ones that all fit together. And so it's why I was like so interested when we thought of this podcast, because it was interesting, because I'm like, I know you guys dealt with a lot of episodic stuff. I had dealt with a lot of more cartoons that had a more serious theme where the story connected and everything. And so I was very excited to
It's
talk
interesting
about
you mentioned this, because a lot of that concept for television is because of The Sopranos.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, that was a very influential show that had a lot of that aspect to it. So it's funny, we're just kind of coming back around
well,
too.
and X-Files too.
That's true too.
Oh,
yes. But
and probably many other things that we're just
I'm sure. But one thing that that I think will be really interesting to watch you over the next few years is to see how Gravity Falls influences the things that you're going to watch later. Just like Mom's talking about how these shows influenced her sense of humor, are you going to look at some shows and be like, it's not as good as Gravity Falls? Or it's not as... this isn't connecting with me because I would prefer something more like Gravity Falls.
Or I also could go through the route of, this is exactly what I like. Because, I mean... I could admit that some of my favorite cartoons aren't perfect, and I don't like every single aspect. So maybe I could also find a cartoon that I'm like, this is what I wanted from Gravity Falls. This is more of what I wanted from Gravity Falls. This is like, I think, my new favorite cartoon, because my taste could change.
And
they will evolve and grow.
Yeah.
A lot of the cartoons I have on my list have a theme that I feel like only I could really recognize if I put them all together. Yeah.
That's not a big mystery, honey.
That and also a lot of the cartoons that I like have a more foresty nature theme, and and a lot of them deal with which is ironic because I don't go outside much. But
and in fact, straight up freaked out last night when cottagecore came into her room. There was a frog on her wall. We don't know how it got there.
I love people, but I hate gatherings.
Yep. Anyway.
But yeah, I really liked Harvey Birdman because of the fact that it could bring both the people who grew up with these cartoons and the people who haven't together to enjoy this one cartoon.
And maybe on different levels and for different reasons.
Yes.
But either way, it was still funny.
Either way, it was still funny, comedic.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
Either way, it was still an enjoyable show.
Absolutely. I am very happy that this was your choice. I'm really looking forward, because I know you've said soon we're going to do C-Lab 2021. We have to do Space Ghost at some point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
that
know
one,
it.
we want to talk about influential.
Well, and I kind of feel like we should do Space Ghost and Brack Show together.
I agree.
But...
But I mean, we will definitely be getting to Space Ghost. That one is way too influential to not get to at some point.
Oh, yeah.
And I haven't watched those in a long time. Now, that was a show I actually, I taped it on VCR.
God, you're old.
What's that, Grandpa?
Yeah, I actually taped that. That was when Ben and I lived together back when in Champaign days in my early 20s. We would record it.
For the record, Champaign, Illinois. That sounded way fancier.
Not in my Champagne and caviar
in my
days.
Champagne days, taping cartoons, ladies.
But, yeah, back in my early 20s, I mean, we'd go out to the bars, but we would set the VCR to record Space Ghost.
You guys were the cutest couple.
Well, I know. But it was a great show. I mean, I loved that show. So, okay, well, I guess that probably wraps up Harvey. I think we all agree that it was hilarious.
I would definitely continue. I honestly am considering continuing watching it because
I mean, they're only 10 minutes long.
It's only 10 minutes, and also
and there's only what did I say 39 episodes?
Yeah, just 39 episodes. So you're talking a few hours, get it out of the way.
It's a good show, and I would love to see because another thing I like about it, just a quick thing, is that it has a different case for different cartoons. There was a custody battle. There was a copyright.
Because it's not that. It's really not that hard for them to I mean, I know that there's a lot more layers that make the fact that Fred was a mob boss, but you could also kind of just watch the Flintstones and be like, "What's going on with this guy?" Because I know it was the honeymooners basically.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah.
Yes, very good show. Very happy we watched it. Cannot wait to get further into Adult Swim.
10 out of 10 would recommend.
Yes, exactly. All right, thank you very much, folks. This was a very fun episode. We will be back next time with Harper's next pick, which she's already chosen what it is. What's it going to be?
Craig of the Creek on Cartoon Network. It is a show that I recently fell in love with, and I'm very excited to talk about the aspects I love about it and how I came to figure out this show.
And I'm really interested in this one because Andrea and I have not watched any of it. So we will be watching it for the first time. It's not like Adventure Time or Gravity Falls where we've watched some.
Cartoon for Cartoon Network. Not super new, but and it's one that I definitely think is worth a watch.
Okay.
So I'm very excited for when
we're looking forward to it too. And hopefully you will join us next time on Generation Toon.
Yay!